One more thing before we go, because we talked about this at length on Friday's show, and Max was with us. But David, I want to get your thoughts on this too, because you cover a lot of SEC stuff. I believe you just finished your SEC power rankings.
It's true.
I believe Alabama's number 3. Which when is the last time? When is the last time Alabama, other than the end of last season, when is the last time Alabama would have been number 3
teeing me up for that one
in the SEC power rankings?
Well, I think this is the thing. Like, Alabama has recruited quite well. I don't know if anybody's heard about this or been following this. Alabama's recruited quite well. So the talent is there. Look, Alabama's not short on talent. But at the end of the day, when you look at power rankings and you look at, okay, what is this fall going to look like? And you look at established stars and you look at established dudes, LSU's got 2 guys on the Heisman shortlist in Jaden Daniels for sure. Harold Perkins, I think, will have a couple huge games that get him some Heisman buzz at some point.
He might be the best defensive player in the country in terms of what he might be in terms of ceiling.
Yes. And Mason Smith is probably an All-American type talent who missed all of last year when, need I remind you, LSU beat Alabama to win the SEC West. I think when you say it, and you look at, oh, Alabama's behind LSU, it's kind of like, really? But then you say, oh, well, how is that? Well, did you last season they literally lost the division, and I don't see any reason why Alabama should be ahead of LSU, especially when you look at what LSU has coming back. They lose Kayshon Boutte, but listen, Malik Neighbors, great player. LSU is just in a spot to do some big things this year, and I think too, talking to some guys on their staff and watching the games, obviously, Jaden Daniels from September to December, completely different player.
Right.
At some point in the midseason, it clicked, and now you have a whole offseason with that staff where you've worked with them. You still have really good receivers. I mean, they have good depth behind Neighbors as well. I mean, Daniels, I think, still has a lot to prove as a passer, but he still has, obviously a really lethal running threat. And I think when we saw him play so much more confidently in the second half of the season, accuracy. I mean, LSU, listen, if you're looking for a national title sleeper, I don't know what the national title odds are on LSU and where they rank in that. I bet you Bama's probably higher. I'm going to guess. Yeah. I could be wrong about that. LSU seems like a decent flyer.
Well, and so we always talk about the SEC, and when you talk to SEC, there's a lot of scrimmage league. It's a lot of scrimmage league. So LSU has Will Campbell and Emory Jones at their offensive tackle spots. They were true freshmen last year. Mm-hmm. They've had a full year now.
I think they bring back five starters on the offensive line. That was not very good last year when they won the SEC West. Need I remind us again?
Right. Yeah. And then that defensive line, you get Mason Smith back, who is an elite talent. We'll see how he comes off the injury, but that's a scary bunch right there. And so that's how, Georgia, we know Georgia's always got somebody good on the offensive line, somebody good on the defensive line. That's not going to be a problem. They're just cycling up. Georgia at this point is just cycling up first-round picks on both lines of scrimmage. Alabama, we're not seeing that as much. Now, Caden Proctor.
And 2 new coordinators.
Right, exactly. Caden Proctor, when you see him, you're like, ooh, that's going to be a first-round draft pick someday. But their offensive line, you looked at the spring game and you go, okay, they got to figure out left tackle. They might have to figure out center. And I don't see those questions at LSU. I don't see those questions at Georgia. I don't see those questions at Tennessee. Now, Alabama gets Tennessee and LSU at home this year. But if that's the best argument you can make, that's a problem.
And somehow, Andy, we had this whole conversation without even talking about the Alabama quarterback situation.
Well, and that's what we talked about that all day on Friday. But yes, I want to get into that with you.
And it's listen, Tyler Buchner is probably an upgrade, but is he a magic pill that but that's maybe. If you told me that Milroe or Simpson would be better than him by the end of the season, I would absolutely believe you. We don't really know what we've seen. We know that what we saw in the spring game, this is what, when you see bad spring game performances, you always sort of take it with a grain of salt. But what you don't take with a grain of salt is how the coach talks about it. And when the coach is like, yeah, that was not good, we need to look in the portal, and then takes a big-time portal guy 2 weeks later, that tells you he's not in on these guys. So that's surprising because we saw a lot from Milroe last year when Bryce Young got hurt, and Ty Simpson obviously was like an all-world recruit. And so for them to be in this position is very surprising. That's not something that I would have expected when the season ended. I thought they were in a pretty good spot when Bryce Young left. Nick Saban clearly believes that's not the case.
Guys, when was the last time we had an Alabama team that was rolling with nobody believes in us?
Oh no!
Powerful. That's true. We might be there.
We just gave the national title.
I think the last time we saw that was before the SEC championship in 2021,
which they destroyed Georgia in that game.
Demolished Georgia, and
then they played Georgia again and lost. So
that's the last time that the Alabama disrespect machine was truly humming. And now we're seeing it in the offseason. So congratulations to Alabama on their 2023 national title.
Exactly. It is a powerful thing because, whereas Nolan Smith can apparently convince everyone that people said Georgia was going to go 7-5, we're actually predicting Alabama not being as good as Georgia or LSU. And yeah, Nick Saban's going to turn that into something.
What was the term that he used? The really weird quote after the SEC championship came where he was like, thanks for the, what was it? The yummy
rat poison. The yummy rat poison.
But wasn't it the opposite of rat poison? Or was it the rat poison that people were inflicting on Georgia?
I think it was, I think it was, we were rat poisoning Georgia. We made the supercut. Me and Ari made the supercut that they used in their motivational video.
That's always good.
So that was shown to the players before the game with me and Ari like, Georgia's going to win this easy. Alabama doesn't stand a chance.
I'm glad I wasn't on the pod that week, but I was with you. I thought that was going to be because Alabama had been limping through the whole season. I was like, here comes the reckoning. Here comes the reckoning. Sure. Georgia about to wreck shop. Nope. Bryce throws for 800 yards against the greatest defense in the history of college football. As this weekend's draft showed. So